You know that moment when someone asks, "So how has your weekend been?" and you feel your entire soul leave your body. That robotic exchange where everyone recites the same tired lines about traffic and weather, but nobody actually connects with another human being. Here is what separates truly powerful men from the masses. They refuse to participate in conversational theater. They understand something most people never figure out. Small talk is not just boring. It is a power killer disguised as politeness. Subscribe to Man of Elegance and hit that notification bell if you want to learn how to transform your elegance into real power and success. If you want to become the kind of man who commands respect through sophistication, leave a like on this video. Warren Buffett once said that communication is the most important skill you can develop, but here is what he did not tell you. Most men are communicating like amateurs without even realizing it. They are playing checkers, while elegant men are playing chess. Research from the University of Chicago reveals that people who engage in substantive conversations report significantly higher levels of happiness and satisfaction than those stuck in small talk loops. But this goes deeper than happiness. This is about influence, respect, and the kind of presence that opens doors. Small talk serves one purpose in society, but it has become a reflex rather than a strategic choice. Most men use it as social filler, trading meaningless pleasantries without creating any genuine connection or demonstrating their value. But men who understand true elegance, they skip the script entirely. They know that meaningful conversation starts where small talk dies. Why elegant men avoid small talk? The problem with "how about this weather" is not the question itself. It is that everyone knows you are just filling dead air while waiting for your turn to speak about yourself. This creates what psychologists call conversational autopilot. Everyone playing their predictable role, but nobody being authentic or memorable. I experienced this revelation at a business dinner in Manhattan 2 years ago. I watched a man across the room navigate conversations with such calculated precision that people were literally repositioning themselves to be within his sphere of influence. He never once mentioned the weather or complained about the subway delays. Instead, he asked questions like, "What industry shift has surprised you most this year?" The difference was magnetic. People leaned in. They remembered him. They wanted to do business with him. Here are the 8 phrases elegant men use instead of small talk. 1. What has been capturing your attention lately? This phrase immediately elevates you above the noise of typical networking conversations. Instead of asking what someone does for work, information you can get from LinkedIn, you are asking what they find intellectually stimulating. It demonstrates that you value their mind, not just their job title. I deployed this strategy at a charity gala last spring. Instead of the usual, "How do you know the host?" I approached a prominent investor with, "What has been capturing your attention lately?" He spent 15 minutes discussing emerging markets in renewable energy. That conversation led to 3 follow-up meetings and a significant business opportunity, much more valuable than discussing the appetizers. The psychology here is crucial. When you ask someone about their current interests, you activate what researchers call curiosity-based engagement rather than information-gathering mode. You become someone worth talking to, not just someone collecting business cards. 2. I would value your perspective on something. This phrase immediately positions the other person as an expert while demonstrating that you respect their judgment. It transforms you from just another networking contact into someone who recognizes and acknowledges their expertise. The key is following this with something you genuinely want their opinion about. Perhaps something you read in the Financial Times or an observation about the industry you are both in. You become a conversation partner rather than another person making small talk about parking difficulties. 3. That brings up an interesting point I have been considering. This phrase allows you to introduce substantial topics without making the conversation about yourself. You can use it to steer discussions toward subjects that actually matter to you, creating opportunities for genuine intellectual exchange. For example, if someone mentions they recently changed companies, instead of asking, "How do you like it?" you might say, "That brings up an interesting point I have been considering about how corporate culture affects individual performance. Have you noticed differences in how you approach problems in your new environment?" Suddenly, you have moved from surface-level job changes to exploring human psychology and performance optimization. That is the difference between elegant conversation and social autopilot. 4. I have been thinking about something that might interest you. This phrase creates immediate curiosity and invites engagement with something you find genuinely fascinating. It is the opposite of small talk because it comes from your authentic intellectual interests rather than social obligation. You might say, "I have been thinking about something that might interest you. Do you believe artificial intelligence will fundamentally change how we evaluate human skills in business?" Instantly, you have moved from weather commentary to exploring the future of work. That is how you become memorable. 5. What would you approach differently if you were starting fresh? This question bypasses all the resume information and gets directly to what someone actually thinks about their field or situation. It demonstrates that you are interested in their wisdom and experience, not just their credentials. I asked this question to a successful restaurant owner at a business conference who had been giving very standard answers to everyone else. His entire demeanor shifted. He told me about how he would focus more on staff development and less on expansion if he could restart. That led to a conversation about leadership philosophy and human capital development. Real substance, real connection. 6. Your insight on this would be valuable. This phrase acknowledges the worth of what someone has already shared and encourages them to continue developing their thoughts. It shows that you are not just waiting for your turn to speak, but actually processing and valuing what they are saying. The sophisticated element is in the word insight. It elevates their comment from casual observation to valued expertise. People respond differently when they feel their thoughts are being treated with genuine respect and consideration. 7. Tell me about something that has surprised you recently. This question assumes the person has an inner life worth exploring and experiences worth sharing. Instead of asking about their commute or weekend plans, you are asking about their experience of being human and learning. I particularly appreciate this question because it can lead anywhere. Someone might discuss a book that changed their perspective, a conversation with their teenager that opened their eyes, or a business insight that shifted their strategy. The goal is not to predict the answer, but to create space for authentic sharing. 8. What is your take on this situation? Similar to asking for perspective, but more immediate and contextual. This phrase works beautifully when you are both observing the same environment. Perhaps the networking event you are attending, the way a restaurant operates, or even how people are interacting around you. It creates instant connection because you are both experiencing the same moment, but now you are exploring it together, rather than just commenting separately about obvious things like the venue or the food quality. The psychology behind elegant conversation research, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, reveals something fascinating about how our minds respond to different conversation styles. When someone demonstrates genuine intellectual curiosity through both verbal and non-verbal engagement, it significantly increases the likelihood of creating lasting professional relationships. When you ask, "What has been capturing your attention lately?" you activate curiosity-based connection rather than information-gathering mode. I observed this dynamic at a private equity conference in Chicago last fall. The room contained hundreds of high-net-worth individuals, but there was a clear distinction between those making polite small talk and those creating genuine connections. The elegant men in attendance, and trust me, You could identify them immediately, were not discussing traffic or complaining about flight delays. They were asking questions like, "What market inefficiency are you seeing that others are missing?" Or, "What assumption about your industry has proven completely wrong recently?" The difference was electric. People around them were engaged, leaning forward, and actually thinking rather than just waiting to escape the conversation. These men were not trying to impress anyone with their knowledge. They were demonstrating something much more powerful, genuine, intellectual curiosity about the people they encountered. What sophisticated men know about conversation topics? Wealthy and sophisticated men often possess knowledge about global markets, technology trends, cultural developments, fine dining, travel, and business strategy. But here is what most people misunderstand. They do not lead with these topics to demonstrate their sophistication. They use them as bridges to understanding who someone really is as a person and a professional. Instead of asking, "Do you follow crypto markets?" an elegant man might say, "I have been wondering about something. How do you think emerging technologies change the way successful people evaluate opportunities?" Same territory, completely different energy and outcome. The difference is intention over information gathering. Small talk is about filling silence and collecting basic data. Elegant conversation is about creating connection and demonstrating that you value the other person's mind. When you ask someone, "What has captured your attention lately?" you are not trying to determine if they are worth your time. You are assuming they already are, and you are creating space for them to demonstrate why. Advanced conversation techniques for different environments. The truly elegant man adapts his conversation approach to the environment while maintaining his authentic intellectual curiosity. At formal business dinners, you might say, "I would value your perspective on this," before introducing a thoughtful topic about industry trends. At private clubs, try, "That brings up something interesting I have been considering about how successful people think about risk. I learned this adaptability watching a prominent venture capitalist at an exclusive member event in San Francisco. He moved seamlessly between conversations about emerging technologies, international market dynamics, and cultural shifts, but never in a way that felt like he was performing his intelligence. He was genuinely curious about what others thought about these subjects that mattered to him. At business networking events, the phrase, "What would you approach differently if you were starting fresh?" works exceptionally well because it acknowledges expertise while inviting people to share insights beyond their standard elevator pitch. The art of conversational recovery. Sometimes even elegant men find themselves trapped in boring conversations. The sophisticated approach is not to escape rudely, but to elevate the discussion gracefully. If someone is complaining about their commute, you might say, "Speaking of daily routines, what is something small that makes a significant difference in how your day unfolds?" Suddenly you have moved from complaints to personal optimization strategies. If someone asks about your weekend plans and you want to avoid the standard script, try this approach. "I'm trying to find the right balance between productivity and actual restoration. What does an ideal day off look like for someone in your position?" It acknowledges their question but transforms it into something more substantive and valuable. When small talk is actually necessary. Let me be direct. Sometimes small talk is unavoidable. Elevator rides, taxi conversations, brief encounters at coffee shops. Even in these moments, elegant men find ways to bring humanity to the exchange without forcing depth where it does not belong naturally. In a taxi, rather than commenting on traffic patterns, you might say, "I always find it interesting to see the city from this perspective. Do you ever notice things that regular residents miss?" You have acknowledged the shared experience while inviting the driver to share their unique viewpoint based on their professional observation of the city. At the barbershop, instead of discussing weekend plans, try, I always wonder if people leave here feeling different than when they arrived. It is light enough for the context, but it acknowledges that there is something psychological about the experience of personal grooming and self-care. The power of sophisticated storytelling. One technique that distinguishes elegant men from everyone else is how they share their own experiences. They do not just relay events chronologically, they share observations and insights. Instead of saying, "I was in Dubai last month," an elegant man might say, "I was in Dubai recently and noticed how differently business relationships develop there compared to New York." Have you experienced those kinds of cultural differences in how people approach professional trust? This technique works because you are sharing an experience while immediately inviting the other person to reflect on their own experiences and insights. You become a conversation partner rather than someone talking about yourself. Navigating difficult conversation partners. Every elegant man encounters people who monopolize conversations, interrupt constantly, or seem determined to turn every exchange into a competition. The sophisticated response is not to match their energy, but to maintain your grace while protecting your conversational space. With people who interrupt frequently, try this phrase: "I appreciate your enthusiasm. Let me complete this thought, and then I genuinely want to hear your perspective." It acknowledges them while firmly maintaining your right to finish speaking. With individuals who seem to have opinions about everything, use "That is an interesting viewpoint. I had not considered that angle." It validates them without agreeing or disagreeing, and often allows you to gracefully redirect the conversation toward more productive territory. With people who only discuss themselves, try, "You clearly have strong feelings about this subject. What do you think someone in my position should understand about this topic?" It acknowledges their passion while gently asking them to consider your perspective and experience. Reading social dynamics. Like a professional, truly elegant men are masters at reading room dynamics and adjusting their conversation approach accordingly. At intimate dinner parties, they might ask more personal questions like, "What has been teaching you the most about yourself this year?" At larger social gatherings, they keep things more accessible with, "What brought you to this event?" I observe this skill regularly at charity events where you have everyone from technology entrepreneurs to art collectors to political figures in the same room. The elegant men I respect most can find intellectual common ground with anyone because they are curious about the person, not impressed by their title or credentials. They also understand timing perfectly. Early in an event, they might ask broader questions to help people feel included and valued. Later, when people are more relaxed and open, they can move toward more meaningful territory that creates lasting connections. How to exit conversations gracefully. Even with elegant conversation skills, sometimes you need to move on to other connections. The sophisticated way to end a conversation is to acknowledge what you gained from the exchange. You might say, "This has been such a valuable conversation. You have given me some important things to consider." Then you smile confidently and you move on. No guilt, no awkwardness, just closure with grace and respect. That approach does not end the conversation. It makes it resonate in the best possible way for future interactions. If someone has shared something particularly insightful, try, "I really appreciate you sharing that perspective with me. This has been genuinely enlightening." The key is specificity, acknowledging what they actually contributed rather than using generic pleasantries that everyone else uses. The elegant man's conversation toolkit. Beyond the 8 phrases we have discussed, elegant men have an entire arsenal of conversation techniques they deploy naturally. They use what conversation experts call bridging language, phrases that connect one topic to another seamlessly. That actually relates to something I have been thinking about, or speaking of that subject, allow you to guide conversations without being obvious about your intentions. They also master the art of the thoughtful pause, When someone asks them something unexpected, they do not rush to fill the silence with meaningless words. They might say, "That is such an excellent question. Let me think for a moment," and actually take time to formulate a considered response. This demonstrates that they value quality over speed in their thinking process. Why this matters more than ever. In a world saturated with scripted interactions and surface-level connections, the man who listens with genuine intellectual curiosity stands out dramatically. Not because he is loud or attention-seeking, but because he is rare and valuable. Elegance in conversation is not about being perfectly polished or never making mistakes. It is about being intentionally present and genuinely curious. When you stop trying to impress people and start trying to understand them, something powerful happens. The conversation elevates, and so does your influence and reputation. Research from the American Psychological Association confirms that people who engage in substantive conversations report higher levels of life satisfaction and professional success. But this is not just about personal happiness. This is about your ability to create the kinds of relationships that build businesses, open opportunities, and establish your reputation as someone worth knowing. Subscribe to Man of Elegance if you want to continue learning the art of sophisticated communication. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest content on transforming your elegance into real power and success. The next time someone asks, "What do you do?" try responding briefly about your work, then asking, "What has been capturing your attention lately?" Watch how quickly the entire energy and dynamic shifts. Watch how differently people respond to you when you demonstrate genuine curiosity about their minds, rather than just gathering information about their job titles. Let me know in the comments. Elegant conversation creates power. What is one small talk question you secretly cannot stand? If this video helped you understand the difference between small talk and elegant conversation, leave a like and share it with someone who needs to upgrade their communication skills. Remember, the goal is not to sound more intelligent than everyone else in the room. The goal is to create moments of genuine human connection in a professional world that has forgotten how to truly listen and engage with ideas. Your challenge this week: try using just one of these phrases instead of your usual small talk approach. Notice how it changes not just the conversation, but how people perceive and remember you. Because when you elevate your conversation skills, you elevate your entire professional presence and personal brand. True elegance is not about demonstrating what you know. It is about showing that you care enough to really understand the person in front of you. And that, my friend, is a skill that opens doors, creates opportunities, and builds the kind of reputation that leads to real success and influence.